She said yes. She cried. She posted a photo with the caption, "Forever starts now." But 72 hours later, her body was found 40 miles from home, buried in shallow dirt. The man she thought was her future had already planned her end. If you care about stories that reveal the darkest side of love, subscribe now. This case is one of the most disturbing we've ever covered. She smiled so wide, her eyes almost closed. The kind of smile that only comes when the heart believes it's finally safe. Her hand shook slightly as she held the ring box up to the camera, fingers trembling not from fear, but joy. She posted the photo at 8:42 p.m. Her caption read, "He asked. I said yes. Forever starts now." It would be the last photo she ever shared. At that moment, her phone lit up with messages, hearts, congratulations, gifts of diamond rings and champagne bottles. Her notifications poured in like confetti. Friends cheered. Her sister cried. Her mother called her twice just to say how proud she was. No one knew she wouldn't make it to the wedding. No one imagined the man kneeling in front of her, smiling just as wide, had already picked the place he planned to bury her. 3 days later, her body was found in a clearing just off the side of a remote highway. Buried in shallow soil. No shoes. No purse. No engagement ring. Just a single earring, pressed into the earth beside her face. How do we make sense of that? How does a man hold a woman's face in his hands, promise to protect her, and then silence her forever? This isn't a story about a bad relationship. This isn't about a breakup gone wrong. This is about a man who studied her heart. Who watched the way she trusted. Who waited until she was all in. And then, vanished her. Left her family to ask questions they never imagined they'd need to ask. Questions like, did she know? Was she afraid? Was he always planning this? There were no warning signs anyone could agree on. No bruises. No restraining orders. No screaming fights in public. But when the pieces started to fall together, they formed a picture more chilling than anyone was ready to face. Because the truth is, he had planned this. Every detail. From the location of the proposal to the exact stretch of road he would take her down. She never had a chance to run. She never had a moment to fight. She believed she was walking into forever. But the truth? She was walking toward her final night alive. This documentary is about what happened to Tiana Brooks. A daughter. A teacher. A woman who loved with her whole heart. A woman who thought she had finally found the man she could build her life with. He gave her a ring. She said yes. And within 72 hours, she was gone. Tonight, we walk through the evidence, the interviews, the timelines, and the testimony. We uncover what he hid, what the investigators found, and the haunting moments that replayed in the courtroom when the truth came to light. This is the story of a proposal that turned into a funeral. A promise that turned into a confession. And a woman who trusted the wrong man with her forever. Stay with us. Because once you hear what happened next, you won't forget her name. July 9, 2021. Atlanta, Georgia. The sun had just dipped below the horizon when the last photo of Tiana Brooks lit up timelines across social media. In it, she was glowing. Not in the filtered, forced way people sometimes smile for the camera. This was real. Her curls fell effortlessly around her face, and her eyes, they didn't just sparkle. They told a story of relief. Of believing the wait was over. That she'd found the man who would stand beside her for life. That man was Marcus Lyles. 31. No criminal record. A rising entrepreneur in the world of luxury car rentals. Polished. Charismatic. The kind of man who spoke in low, controlled tones. The kind who never raised his voice in public. The kind who always shook hands with both hands, looked people in the eye, and made them feel like they could trust him. He was good. Very good. Tiana met him through a friend's birthday party 2 years earlier. He'd complimented her shoes. Then her smile. And before the night was over, he was walking her to her car. By Monday, he was sending flowers to her classroom. Tiana taught 3rd grade at Eastview Elementary. Loved by her students. Respected by her peers. Known for her soft-spoken presence and a habit of staying late after school to make sure every kid had what they needed. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't reckless. She was grounded, careful, and known to be cautious when it came to relationships. But something about Marcus disarmed her. To friends, he was attentive, maybe even a little too much. He'd check in often. Text constantly. Show up at her job unannounced with lunch. At first, it felt romantic. She called it movie love. But over time, some of her closest friends began to notice small cracks. Little things she brushed off. Like the time she skipped a girls' night because Marcus didn't feel comfortable with her going out without him. Or when she canceled plans with her sister last minute, twice, because Marcus had something special planned. In the moment, she laughed it off. Said he just liked spending time with her. Said it was refreshing to be with a man who really wanted her around. But in her journal, discovered later in the back of her closet, her tone was different. One entry from 6 months before her death read: "He doesn't yell. He never hits. But sometimes I feel like I have to keep my phone near me just to breathe. Like I always have to be reachable. And when I'm not, the air changes. His silence feels louder than anything else. I don't want to overthink. Maybe this is just what love feels like." Her mother, Dolores, would later say that Tiana never brought up any real concerns. She seemed happy. He seemed decent. We prayed about it. She said she felt like God sent him to her. What mother wouldn't want that for her daughter? 3 days before her death, Marcus planned a surprise getaway. A cabin just outside Dahlonega. Secluded. Quiet. No neighbors. He told her to pack light, that he'd take care of everything. They left the evening of July 10th. She never returned. At first, no one panicked. Tiana had told her sister, Kayla, that she'd be off the grid for a couple of days. "We just want to unplug," she'd said. But by the morning of July 13th, something felt wrong. She hadn't responded to a single message. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her car, a white Toyota Camry, was missing. And Marcus wasn't answering either. Kayla filed the report at 6:43 p.m. She told officers her sister would never just disappear. Especially without checking in on her students, who were attending summer reading camp. By 8 p.m., patrol officers located her vehicle in a parking lot near Chattahoochee National Forest. Doors locked. Keys missing. Her phone wedged between the seats. On the passenger floor, an engagement ring, still in its box. The investigation escalated quickly. What started as a missing persons report transformed into a full-scale search and rescue. Volunteers combed the woods. Drones were deployed. Bloodhounds picked up a scent, but it faded near a stretch of gravel a few miles into the forest. Detectives began to focus on Marcus. He was the last person known to be with her. But when they knocked on his door, he wasn't home. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station placed Marcus there at 3:17 a.m. on July 11th, alone. Dirty. Sweating. Buying 2 bottles of bleach and a pack of rubber gloves. That same day, authorities obtained a warrant to search his vehicle, a black 2019 Dodge Durango. Inside, they found a shovel. Traces of soil. A torn fabric strip believed to be from a scarf Tiana was wearing in her engagement photo. And hair fibers. Later confirmed by DNA to be Tiana's. The breakthrough came 48 hours later. A trail camera, used by hunters deep within the forest, had captured something chilling. At 2:08 a.m., a figure was seen dragging what appeared to be a large bundle wrapped in a dark blanket. The timestamp matched the window between Tiana's last known phone ping and Marcus's gas station visit. Authorities returned to the area with cadaver dogs. 20 yards off the path, they found her. Shallow burial. Torn nails. Bruises on her arms. Strangulation marks on her neck. And no engagement ring. When officers finally brought Marcus in, he didn't speak for 2 hours. Just sat with his hands folded, staring at the wall. Eventually, he leaned forward and said, "She wasn't supposed to leave." Detectives asked him what he meant. He repeated, "She said she wanted out. She said she changed her mind. But it was too late." Too late for what? Too late to say no. Too late to stop a man who'd already decided that if she wouldn't be his forever, she wouldn't be anyone's. The trial began 6 months later. Packed courtroom. Tears. Gasps. Photos of Tiana's final moments. Her journal entries read aloud. And Marcus, expressionless through it all. He never testified. But in a recorded phone call from jail, he told a cousin, "She embarrassed me. She made me believe she was mine. And then she said she didn't want the life we built. I gave her everything. Everything. Except her life. Except the choice to walk away. Except the freedom to say no." Marcus Lyles was found guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, unlawful disposal of a body, tampering with evidence. Sentenced to life without parole. But no sentence could erase the sound of her mother's cry when the verdict was read. No amount of justice could undo the fact that a woman who only ever wanted love, died believing she'd found it. Tiana's story didn't begin with violence. It began with hope. With long conversations. Thoughtful gestures. Quiet mornings and soft laughter. It began like so many others. And ended like too many do. The days following Marcus's conviction brought a strange silence to the Brooks family home. Reporters stopped calling. The courtroom doors closed. The cameras went away. But for Tiana's mother, Dolores, and her younger sister, Kayla, the quiet wasn't peace, it was emptiness. The kind that lingers in the morning, when the phone doesn't ring at the usual time. The kind that settles over an unopened bedroom door. The kind that haunts you in the form of, what if? The district attorney would later say it was one of the most calculated cases he'd ever seen. A murder committed not in the heat of the moment, but by design. There was no shouting match. No signs of struggle inside the cabin. No forced entry. No witness heard screams. The room had been cleaned. Neatly made. The only thing missing was Tiana herself. Investigators believe Marcus planned it for weeks, maybe longer. They found deleted search history on a device recovered from his garage: how deep to dig a grave, how long does it take to suffocate, how to make someone pass out fast. And perhaps most chilling, can you still get married if your fiancé dies before the wedding? The prosecution argued that Marcus had become obsessed with ownership. That once he sensed Tiana was growing distant, once she started reclaiming her independence, he began plotting a permanent way to keep control. Tiana's co-workers described a shift in her demeanor in the final weeks. She wasn't withdrawn, but she was distracted. She left work early twice, a rarity for her. One teacher, who asked not to be named, said Tiana had confided in her quietly during a break. She said she wasn't sure anymore about the relationship. She said Marcus had started making her feel watched. Like every move she made, every word she said, was being measured. But Tiana never reported abuse. Never filed a complaint. Never told her family the full story. Because there were no bruises. No raised voices. No broken windows or visible scars. And that's what makes this case so terrifying. So difficult. So impossible to forget. Because there are women living this exact story right now, who don't even realize they're in danger. Tiana had goals. She had already begun applying for graduate programs in education. She wanted to launch a tutoring center in her community. She had a binder of business plans, a journal full of quotes from students she'd helped, and a dream of one day becoming a principal. Her desk still had sticky notes from the last class she taught. One of them said, "Miss Brooks, I want to be like you when I grow up." It's a sentence her mother reads over and over. In the aftermath of the trial, Dolores Brooks started a foundation in her daughter's name, the Tiana Project. Its mission is to identify early signs of coercive control, emotional isolation, and psychological manipulation in relationships. Because abuse isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it looks like love. The foundation offers training for teachers and school staff to recognize warning signs, not just in romantic relationships but in any power dynamic where someone feels trapped. Because Tiana never screamed. But she left traces. In her words. In her journals. In her distance. We just didn't know how to read them in time. Marcus remains behind bars at the Georgia Diagnostic and Classification Prison. In his own statement to the parole board, which he gave only once, out of routine, he claimed it was a moment of panic that led to Tiana's death. But the evidence said otherwise. There was no panic in his movements. No sign of regret. Only execution. Precision. Planning. The judge, before delivering the sentence, looked Marcus directly in the eye and said, "You didn't kill her in a moment of rage. You didn't lose control. You were in control the entire time. That's what makes this so terrifying. And that's why you will never walk free again." As the years pass, Tiana's name continues to echo in communities across the country. Her story is shared in workshops, in counseling sessions, in college classrooms. She is now a symbol, not just of what was lost, but of what must never be overlooked again. Because Marcus didn't fit the mold. He wasn't a monster in public. He was charming. Presentable. Successful. And that's exactly how he gained access to her heart. The ring wasn't a gift. It was bait. And in accepting it, she stepped into a future he had already decided would end with her name etched in stone. This story is not meant to be remembered just for the horror of its ending, but for the quiet signs leading up to it. The overlooked words. The silences mistaken for peace. The doubts that deserved attention. This is the truth of Tiana Brooks. And her truth must never be forgotten. There was one more detail. One that hadn't made headlines. Something investigators debated whether to even include in the report. Inside a locked drawer in Marcus's closet, tucked beneath old tax documents and a faded hoodie from his college days, they found a small velvet box. It matched the ring box he'd given Tiana. Same color, same texture. But when they opened it, the ring inside wasn't for her. It was smaller. A diamond chip in a simple silver band. Etched inside, a single name, Renee. The discovery reopened a line of questioning investigators thought had been closed. Renee Whitaker. A girlfriend Marcus had dated 5 years before he met Tiana. A woman who, according to records, had moved out of state abruptly in 2017, cutting ties with all mutual friends. Detectives reached out. She declined an in-person interview, but agreed to a call. Her voice, when they first heard it, was composed. Calm. Like she'd waited years for this conversation. And when they asked why she left Georgia so suddenly, she didn't pause. "I left because I knew one day, if I stayed, I'd be found at the bottom of a lake," she said. She went on to describe a relationship marked by control. She couldn't wear certain clothes. Couldn't go certain places. He'd monitor her phone. Isolate her from friends. She said Marcus had never laid a hand on her. But he didn't need to. People think abuse is always about bruises. But it's about fear. Constant fear. Like you're one wrong word away from watching him become someone else. She never pressed charges. She never told her family. She said she didn't think anyone would believe her. After all, Marcus was kind to everyone else. Polite. Generous. Ambitious. When she ended the call, she said one last thing. "I'm sorry about Tiana. I don't know if anything I could have said back then would have changed what happened to her. But I wish I'd said it anyway." Her voice cracked. Then silence. Investigators later learned that Marcus had proposed to Renee too. The ring had been purchased, the dinner reservations made. But she ended things just days before he was planning to give it to her. He never returned the ring. Forensic analysts believe he kept it as a reminder. A mark of something he failed to possess. And when Tiana came along, bright, ambitious, beautiful, he saw a second chance to do it right. To keep control this time. The pattern was there. But no one had put the pieces together until it was too late. Tiana's case would go on to change policies in several counties. Domestic violence prevention units began retraining staff to identify non-physical forms of abuse. Universities used her story in their psychology and social work programs. Her name became a reference point in case studies. And yet, for her family, the loss remained personal. Deep. Quiet. Her mother, Dolores, never moved out of the family home. She kept Tiana's room exactly as it was. Every book on the shelf. Every note on the desk. Even the scented candle Tiana lit each night before bed, still sealed. Never used again. Each year, on Tiana's birthday, Dolores hosts a candlelight vigil. Former students, friends, neighbors, all gather in the school parking lot where Tiana taught. They hold hands. They share memories. And they speak her name out loud, together. Because to remember her is to honor her fight. The quiet one. The one we couldn't see. The students who once sat in her classroom are growing up now. Some have gone to college. One wrote a letter that Dolores keeps in a drawer next to her bed. It reads, "Miss Brooks believed in me before I believed in myself. Now I want to be a teacher too. Just like her." In the final moments of the trial, as the jury foreman read the guilty verdict aloud, Marcus didn't look surprised. He didn't weep. He didn't speak. He only stared at the floor. Maybe he thought he'd won. For a while, he had. But truth always waits. In silence. In fragments. In every unanswered question that finally finds its voice. This is the story of a woman who smiled when he placed a ring on her finger, unaware that he was planning to make her name a headline. But now, her story is more than that. It is a warning. A legacy. And a voice for every woman who has ever second-guessed the feeling in her gut, only to find out too late that it was right all along. The story of Tiana Brooks doesn't end in the courtroom. It continues in every woman who learns to trust her instincts. In every man held accountable before it's too late. And in every teacher, mother, friend, or sister who decides to speak up, before another ring becomes a cage. Because love should never come with fear. And if it does, it isn't love. Tiana Brooks didn't get to finish her story. But we will finish it for her. With truth. With change. And with the promise that her life, her voice, her love, will never be forgotten. If you or someone you know is experiencing control, isolation, or fear in a relationship, don't wait. Speak up. Reach out. There is help, and there is hope. What do you think should have been done differently in Tiana's case? Do you believe emotional abuse is taken seriously enough by the justice system? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this story important, don't let it end here. Like the video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe for more stories that demand to be told. Because every voice matters, and every story, like Tiana's, deserves to be heard.